Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are putting on our lab coats and maybe our kitchen aprons.
A little bit of both.
We have this massive collection in front of us, 50 different recipes, all for what are called most wanted cookies and bars. Our job is to dig through all of that and pull out the crucial bits of knowledge for you.
It's a huge undertaking, and really, we're not just looking at ingredient lists. This is more like a forensic culinary analysis.
Right.
Our mission here is to find the underlying architecture. What makes a cookie or a bar so good that it becomes universally requested? We're looking for the common structures, the flavor chemistry, and sometimes the really surprising shortcuts.
I love that idea of architecture because we have everything here. I mean, simple snap cookies, really elaborate layered bars, and then these incredibly dense liquor-infused holiday things. Exactly. So to make sense of it all, we're going to group them, not just by name, but by their foundational principles. What's the main flavor? What's holding it all together?
Yeah, we're stepping back from memorizing exact measurements. Because honestly, who remembers 1.5 cups plus 2 tablespoons from a podcast?
Nobody.
We're focusing on the ratios, the function of those ingredients, the why.
Why melted butter here but softened butter there?
Precisely. Why does this one need to chill overnight? These little shifts are everything. They're the difference between a dense, chewy cookie and a light, crisp one.
Okay, so where do we start?
I think we should start by setting aside the standard drop cookie for a minute and looking at the outliers first, the ones that are no-bake and the ones that use sophisticated, deep alcohol flavors.
Got it. Let's unpack those liqueur recipes first. This feels like a move away from baking and more toward, like, confectionery.
Right. When you take the oven out of the equation, you need a new way to bind everything together.
And that usually means fat and sugar.
Exactly. Fat and sugar, plus some kind of adhesive liquid like a liquor or corn syrup, they take over the job that baked gluten would normally do. And you get something incredibly dense and rich.
So the first cluster we found uses amaretto, or chocolate liqueurs, and we have 3 great examples of this.
Amaretto balls, amaretto truffles, and creme de cacao balls.
And what's amazing is the huge gap in sophistication between the first two. It's night and day.
Let's start with the amaretto balls.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the definition of a no-bake shortcut. But they're kind of genius in their simplicity.
So the base is just crushed cookies.
Crushed chocolate sandwich cookies, Oreos mixed with powdered sugar, almonds, and some shredded coconut. You just throw it all in a food processor and blitz it.
And the binder, the liquid, is a pretty generous amount of amaretto, 2/3 of a cup.
And that liquor is doing 2 jobs. First, it's intense, immediate flavor, and second, it's the glue. It turns that dry powder into a dense, moldable dough.
So once it's blended, what's the process?
It's super fast, just
Yeah.
a quick chill, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, just enough to make it easy to handle. Then you roll them into balls and garnish it with more coconut.
But because it's bound with liquor, you have to store them in the fridge, right?
Absolutely. In a lidded canister, refrigerated, they're not shelf-stable like a baked cookie. At their heart, they're confectionery, not baking.
Okay, so now compare that rapid-fire convenience to the amaretto truffles.
Oh, it's a completely different world.
Suddenly we're talking high-quality ingredients, high-fat components, actual cooking techniques.
This is not a shortcut. This is a serious culinary project. The base here is semi-sweet chocolate, butter, whipping cream, and egg yolks. The amaretto is just an accent, only a 1/4 cup.
And the structure is all about creating a cooked emulsion.
Right, it starts with melting chocolate over a double boiler.
And this is where the technique really gets specific. You have to beat the egg yolks separately until they're thick and pale lemon-colored.
And then comes the really critical step. You have to slowly, very slowly, incorporate some of that hot chocolate mixture into the yolks, stirring constantly.
It's basically tempering the eggs, right, so they don't scramble.
It's exactly that. You're gently raising the temperature of the yolks, stabilizing them with the fat before you mix everything back together with the amaretto and cream.
And then that whole mixture goes back on the heat.
Yep, over low heat, and you cook it down until it gets thick and smooth. That cooking step is what gives you the dense, rich texture of a real truffle.
So the amaretto balls use liquor to just soak and bind cookie crumbs.
While the truffles use it as a delicate flavor note in this meticulously engineered, high-fat, cooked base.
And the chill time really tells the story. The truffles need to be chilled overnight before you can even think about rolling them.
It's a totally different level of commitment. One is a high-speed hack, the other is a slow, structural build.
Okay, so what about the third one, the creme de cacao balls? Where do they fit in?
There's sort of a middle ground, a synthesis. They go back to the convenient structure, but the flavor is a little more complex than the first amaretto balls.
So crushed cookies again?
Yes, about 30 cream-filled chocolate cookies is the base. But the liquids are different. It's a third of a cup of chocolate liqueur, the creme de cacao, and 2 tablespoons of dark corn syrup.
Ah, the corn syrup. That's a key functional ingredient, isn't it?
It really is. It's super viscous, and it stops sugar from crystallizing, which gives you a smoother, almost glossier texture inside compared to just using dry sugar.
So you mix that with ground pecans and powdered sugar.
And the prep is just simple blending, but the finish is a bit more demanding. You roll them, you chill them, and then you have to roll them a second time in powdered sugar right before you serve them.
Why the double roll?
It's purely for looks. It guarantees that they have a crisp, white, beautiful finish that just signals freshness. It's a simple recipe, but that one little technique elevates it.
Okay, let's pivot from these quick confectionery balls to something, well, something at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. The bourbon Christmas cookies.
This is not a cookie. This is a slice of architectural fruitcake.
It's a marathon bake.
It really is. We are talking about ingredients measured in pounds. A pound of candied red cherries, a pound of candied pineapple, a pound of pecan halves, a whole package of golden raisins. The sheer mass of this requires a very specific approach.
And the half a cup of bourbon is doing more than just adding flavor, I assume.
Oh yeah, it's a key moisturizer and preservative, which is, classic for holiday fruit bakes. But the real genius here is how the recipe deals with the weight of all those inclusions.
Right, if you just dumped 4 pounds of fruit and nuts into a batter, it would all sink to the bottom.
Instantly. You'd have a dry top and a dense, wet, soggy bottom.
So how does it solve that?
By tossing the fruit and nuts with half a cup of the flour first, before they ever see the wet ingredients.
To coat them.
To coat them. That flour creates friction. It gives them a protective layer that helps suspend them in the batter so you get even distribution. It's a critical lesson for any baker.
So after that, the rest of the flour gets mixed with the spices, cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and the baking soda.
And given how dense this batter is, the baking instructions are also really telling. It's a low temperature, 300 degrees Fahrenheit, for about 20 minutes.
Why so low?
It's all about thermal penetration. You need that low, slow heat to cook the inside of that incredibly dense, moist batter without burning the spices or the candied fruit on the outside. You have to be patient with a recipe like this.
All right, so we've seen how complex these no-bake and liquor-based cookies can be, but bars offer a different kind of complexity. It's all about the layers.
Exactly. The format is all about building contrasting textures. You want a firm base, maybe a gooey center, and then a crumbly top. And this is where we start to see some really clever shortcuts that still deliver amazing flavor.
The bar format is just so efficient.
It is. You can scale it up easily, and you can lean on things like pre-made mixes or pre-baking steps to manage that textural contrast. Our apricot examples are perfect for this. The apricot almond bars and the bran apricot bars. Same fruit, but 2 totally different structural approaches.
Let's start with the apricot almond bars. The base here is it's a brilliant shortcut. A package of yellow cake mix that already has pudding in it.
That is a massive convenience. You're skipping all the measuring and sifting of flour, leavening, salt, and you're getting a guaranteed tender cake-like crumb for your base.
So you just mix that with softened butter and some minced almonds until it's crumbly.
And the structural plan here is so meticulous. You reserve 1 cup of that mix for the topping and then press the rest into your pan. Then the layering starts.
First layer is a full cup of apricot preserves.
Right, spread evenly over that crust. That gives you a flavor base and also acts as a moisture barrier. Then comes the really complex part, the filling, which starts with 8 ounces of melted cream cheese.
And that filling is beautifully designed. The cream cheese, an egg, sugar, a little flour, salt, vanilla.
You beat all that until it's perfectly smooth, and then, and this is key, you mix an extra third of a cup of apricot preserves directly into the filling itself.
Okay, wait. Why have a separate layer of preserves and then also mix it into the cream cheese?
Good question. The bottom layer is for that intense flavor punch and the visual ribbon of fruit. The preserves mixed into the cream cheese filling do 2 things. They help stabilize the structure, and they add moisture and color. It ensures the filling doesn't get dry or crack while it bakes.
I see. So the cream cheese is for richness, but the preserves inside it are for binding and moisture.
Precisely. And then for the topping, you take that reserve base mix, you add some grated coconut, and you smear that over the top. So you have that crumbly, nutty contrast to the soft filling below.
Okay, now in stark contrast, we have the Bran apricot bars. This one is way more involved. It's a two-stage baking process.
And it has pre-prep for the fruit. This is not a shortcut recipe. This is a quest for a very specific texture.
What's the quest?
To make sure the dried apricots are perfectly soft and chewy. So you have to start by simmering them in water for about 10 minutes covered, and then you drain them and let them cool.
And if you skip that prehydration step,
the apricots would be like little rocks. They just suck all the moisture out of your batter while baking, and you'd end up with a dry, tough bar.
And the crust here is different, too. It's more rustic, with whole bran cereal in it.
Right. Butter, powdered sugar, flour, and 3/4 of a cup of whole bran cereal. You press that into a smaller pan, and you pre-bake it for 13 to 15 minutes.
Why the pre-bake?
It's a structural lock-in. You're setting the crust, making sure it stays crisp and doesn't get soggy when you pour the wet filling on top.
Which is especially important with that bran cereal, I imagine.
For sure. The filling itself is pretty standard eggs beaten to that lemony color, brown sugar, vanilla. And then you fold in those cooled, pre-simmered apricots. Pour it onto the warm crust and give it a final bake.
All right, now let's talk about the recipes that take really complicated traditional pastries and hack them into a bar format. The baklava bars are the perfect example.
Traditional baklava is, it's a labor of love. Dozens of paper-thin layers of phyllo dough.
Which nobody has time for.
Exactly. So this recipe just swaps all of that out for 2 cans of refrigerated crescent rolls. It is an inspired shortcut.
So you use the first can for the base, press it into the pan and up the sides, and give it a quick pre-bake for 5 to 7 minutes.
And the filling is super simple. A massive amount of walnuts, 3 to 4 cups, plus sugar and cinnamon. The second can of crescent rolls goes on top.
But the most important step here, the signature technique, is the scoring.
Yes. You have to score the top with 5 marks lengthwise and 7 diagonally. It outlines 28 perfect diamond shapes before you even bake it.
Is that just for looks, or is it functional?
Oh, it is 100% functional. The scoring creates these little channels, weak points that allow the dense glaze, which is honey, sugar, butter, and lemon juice, to seep down and penetrate evenly through the whole thing.
So you're basically pre-cutting the bars.
You are. And it prevents you from crushing the whole thing when you try to cut it after it's baked and sticky. The technique is also a 2-stage glaze. Half goes on before the final bake, and the other half goes on the second it comes out of the oven for maximum absorption.
Okay, and if we look at the golden apricot bars, we're back to a simpler, more rustic style, the classic crumble bar.
Right, but this one is defined by a very specific ratio of dry ingredients. It's all about creating a crumbly, sandy texture.
So it's equal parts flour and oatmeal, 1.5 cups each, plus a lot of nuts, sugar, salt, and baking powder.
And the only wet ingredient is 1 cup of melted butter.
The melted butter is doing a lot of work there, isn't it?
It's doing all the work. It binds the dry ingredients without creating any lift or elasticity, which is exactly what you want for a crumble. It gives you a much shorter, more tender crumb.
And the construction is simple layering. 2/3 of the mix for the base, apricot jam in the middle, and the rest of the mix crumbled on top.
Right. And this structure needs the longest bake time of any of the bars, 40 to 45 minutes, to really dry out and crisp up that oatmeal and butter base. Okay, let's shift focus to the real heart of cookie science, the foundational stuff. Small changes in your fat, like butter versus shortening or the type of sugar you use, these create really distinct, predictable results.
This is where we learn how to actually engineer the texture we want, whether it's crispness or spread or chewiness.
Exactly. Let's start with the pure butter forms, like the classic butter balls. The whole goal here seems to be minimizing spread while maximizing that rich butter flavor.
So it's a high ratio of butter to flour with pecans folded in.
But the technique is what really matters. You roll the dough into little 1-inch balls, and you bake them at a lower temperature, 325 degrees, on an ungreased sheet.
An ungreased sheet? That seems like you're asking for them to stick.
It's a trick to minimize spread. On a greased sheet, the melting fat in the dough can flow outward more easily. An ungreased surface provides more friction, so the dough holds its shape and stays in that perfect little ball.
And then you roll them in powdered sugar while they're still warm.
Right, so the warm surface helps the powdered sugar absorb and bind, giving it that delicate, dusty coating.
Okay, next up, the butter cookies pressed. This recipe is totally defined by the tool you use, the cookie press.
Which means the dough has to be a very specific texture. It has to be firm, but pliable and high in fat so it won't spread dramatically.
Yeah.
You need to hold that fine pattern from the press.
So it's low in liquid and baked really quickly, also on an ungreased sheet.
all for structural integrity.
Now, the butter pecan cookies are different. They introduce a really crucial lesson by using equal parts brown sugar and white sugar.
That 50-50 blend is the sweet spot for so many classic cookies. White sugar gives you crispness and helps with spread. Brown sugar, because it has molasses, is hygroscopic.
Meaning it holds onto moisture?
Aggressively. It's what keeps a cookie soft, moist, and chewy, and stops it from going stale so quickly. This combination gives you both a nice spread and a pleasant chew.
And these are baked at a slightly higher temp on greased sheets.
Right, which helps with a faster release, especially with all that brown sugar.
Okay, the butterscotch recipes give us a perfect comparison. How do you get that flavor in a bar versus a slice and bake cookie?
The butterscotch bars are fascinating. Instead of just adding butterscotch chips, the recipe makes you create a butterscotch base from scratch.
How does that work?
You melt a huge amount of packed brown sugar and butter together in a saucepan until it bubbles. You're essentially making a mild cooked caramel.
Which would deepen that butterscotch flavor way more than just using chips.
Immensely. It moves it from just sweet to complex and caramelized. You cool that base down, then add the rest of your ingredients like eggs, flour, coconut, nuts.
And because of that caramel base, the finishing detail is critical.
You have to slice them into bars the second they come out of the oven. If you wait for them to cool completely, that caramelized sugar will lock up like concrete, and you'll never get a clean cut.
Now, compare that to the butterscotch cookies. Slice and bake. Here, it's all about a structured dough, so the fat source is completely different.
1 cup of shortening.
A textbook use of shortening.
It is. Shortening is pure hydrogenated fat. It has no water, unlike butter. Because there's no water, it inhibits gluten development, which gives you a softer, almost cakier texture with very little spread.
And for a slice and bake, minimal spread is the #1 goal.
Absolutely, and the prep confirms that. You mix the dough, you knead it into a log, wrap it in wax paper, and it has to chill overnight.
And that long chill is non-negotiable.
For 2 reasons. 1, it solidifies the fat, so when you slice the log, the cookies hold their shape perfectly in the oven. And 2, it fully hydrates the flour, which maximizes the tenderness you get from using shortening. It's all about that perfect, clean-edged cookie slice.
All right, we've arrived at the chocolate universe. This section is just a masterclass in how tiny changes to your fat temperature, to your leavening agents, can completely reinvent the classic chocolate chip cookie.
Let's start with the archetype, the chocolate chippers. This recipe is engineered from the ground up for one thing, chewiness.
And every decision points to that. First, the fat is melted butter, not softened, and the sugar is heavily weighted toward brown sugar.
Using melted butter, as we said, means you're not creaming air into it. Less air means a denser, flatter dough, which leads directly to a chewier cookie, and the high brown sugar content backs that up by holding on to moisture.
But the part I found most fascinating was the leavening. It calls for a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of baking powder. Why both?
It's basically an insurance policy for a controlled lift. The baking soda reacts with the acid from the brown sugar's molasses for an initial burst of rise.
Okay.
And the baking powder is double acting, so it provides a sustained lift throughout the whole bake. Using both means you get a nice thick center while still getting a little spread. It guarantees that perfect chewy texture.
Now, contrast that with the country and chocolate chip cookies. This one is all about loading up on inclusions.
Right. It's got pecans, flaked coconut, and chocolate flakes. And flakes melt more evenly than chips.
And it adds a tiny, seemingly insignificant amount of extra liquid.
Half a teaspoon of water, added with the vanilla.
That seems like nothing. What is half a teaspoon of water possibly doing?
In baking, it matters. It just slightly lowers the viscosity of the dough. It makes it easier to mix in that huge volume of heavy stuff, the nuts, the coconut, the flakes, without the dough getting too stiff to handle.
It's a minor adjustment for a high load capacity.
Exactly. And the recipe notes it makes 18 very large cookies, which tells you this dough is substantial.
Then we have the chocolate chip butter cookies, which are all about the butter flavor and a really delicate texture.
This one uses a pound of butter, a whole pound, and the sweetener is powdered sugar,
which dissolves instantly into the butter,
creating a very fine, tender crumb that's much closer to a shortbread. The goal here is showcasing the butter flavor, not creating chewiness.
And the finish is classic, dusting them with more confectioner's sugar while they're still warm.
Right, which binds to that slightly soft, warm surface and just reinforces that delicate melt-in-your-mouth quality.
Okay, let's get into some of the more specialized structures. The chocolate almond twinkles are fascinating because they only use egg whites in the dough.
This is a critical choice.
No.
We saw the amaretto truffles used only yolks. This is the opposite. Egg whites are protein and water, no fat. They provide structure and lightness.
And the fat source is vegetable shortening. Again, pure fat, no water.
So shortening plus egg whites gives you a lighter, more structured, almost cakey dough. The tenderness comes from the shortening, the structure from the whites.
And the recipe is so economical, the frosting for the cookies uses the leftover egg yolks.
It's brilliant. The yolks, being high in fat, add all the richness back in the topping. So you get this amazing contrast between the light, crispier base and the rich, buttery drizzle on top.
Now, the chocolate and pineapple cookies rely on a chemical reaction for their structure.
Buttermilk and baking soda. The acid in the buttermilk reacts instantly and powerfully with the baking soda, creating a big release of carbon dioxide.
Which gives it great lift.
And a really moist crumb, which you need to counteract the heaviness of the cocoa powder and brown sugar. And then you stir in a half cup of well-drained pineapple.
And the frosting technique is also very specific. It's made from powdered sugar and the reserved pineapple juice, and you spread it on the cookies while they're still a bit warm.
Applying a thin glaze to a warm cookie lets the sugars melt and absorb slightly. It sets really quickly and creates this sealed, semi-translucent coating that locks in moisture.
And for the person who just wants maximum chocolate with minimum fuss, there's the favorite, double chocolate chippers.
This recipe is just robust. It has a ton of unsweetened cocoa powder in addition to the chocolate chips. And the instructions literally mix all the ingredients well.
That seems way too easy. Why doesn't it need careful creaming or chilling?
Because cocoa powder is so dry and absorbent. It provides so much body and structure to the dough on its own that the mixing process doesn't need to be carefully controlled. The dough will have texture no matter what, which makes it super forgiving.
Okay, last category here. Candy and caramel combinations. The chocolate caramel bars are just an exercise in convenience.
They lean into shortcuts hard. The base is an entire package of chocolate cake mix. The filling is a bag of caramels melted with evaporated milk.
But the process is all about precise timing. Half the dough is pre-baked for exactly 6 minutes. Why so specific?
6 minutes is just enough time to partially set the base, to lock it in. It makes it firm enough to hold that liquid caramel layer without the caramel just soaking straight through.
You'd lose your layers otherwise.
You'd have a mess.
Yeah.
Then you add the caramel, chocolate chips, and the rest of the crumbled dough on top. And it has to chill for 30 minutes after cooling just to make sure that sticky caramel sets up enough to be sliced cleanly.
Now, the chocolate caramel cookies take a totally different approach. It's sculptural. The dough has to completely wrap around 48 individual caramel candies.
Which requires a very pliable but structured dough. It also needs a 1-hour chill time. That's crucial. It solidifies the fat, making the dough firm enough to wrap around each candy without sticking or tearing.
And half the nuts are mixed into the dough, and the other half are used to coat one side before baking.
Right, you bake them nutty side up, and then you drizzle the cooled cookies with a vanilla confectioner's coating.
And finally, the chocolate chip macaroon kisses. This one combines a high-fat dough with a tropical twist.
The fat blend is really unique. Butter combined with softened cream cheese. That combination gives you incredible richness and tenderness. The moisture comes from an egg yolk and 2 teaspoons of orange juice.
And there's a huge amount of coconut.
3 cups. And the shaping is specific. You roll the balls in more coconut flakes before baking.
For maximum texture.
Exactly. And the finishing move, the kiss, is you press a chocolate kiss into the center the second they come out of the oven. The residual heat softens the base of the chocolate just enough to seal it to the cookie. All right, moving into the more traditional and holiday-themed bakes. These are recipes that are often heavy on spices, require very specific shaping, and really invoke a sense of nostalgia.
Let's start with the classic spice structures, beginning with gingerbread men. This one is built on a shortening base and dark molasses.
And that shortening base is so important for traditional cutout cookies. It limits spread, which is how you maintain the sharp, precise shape of your cookie cutter. The spices are classic, but subtle ginger, nutmeg, allspice.
And the key technique is the chill time, 2 to 3 hours. But the real insight here is about the thickness.
That note is pure gold. It tells you exactly how to engineer the final texture. If you roll the dough to a 1/4 inch thick, you get a soft, chewy cookie.
Okay.
But if you roll it to half that thickness, 1/8 of an inch, you get a much crispier treat in less time. It shows that for this kind of dough, thickness is the primary lever you pull to control texture.
The gingerbread butterscotch cookies are an interesting hybrid. They take that traditional spiced base and mix it with a modern convenience.
Butterscotch morsels. This version uses a milder molasses and a lot more spice. And by making it a drop cookie, they get rid of the whole rolling and chilling process. It marries the holiday spices with a much quicker, modern method.
Now, ginger snaps are all about that snap. How is that texture created?
It comes from two things. First, the shortening base, which we know limits spread and creates a certain structure. But second, and this is the key, is the aggressive sugar coating.
The final roll in sugar.
You roll the dough into balls and then pass them through additional white sugar before baking. That extra layer of sugar caramelizes really fast in the oven, and that's what creates that distinctive, crackled, crisp exterior. That's your snap.
And the hermit cookies are a real outlier because they use oil as the main fat source instead of butter or shortening.
Right, 6 tablespoons of oil. Using a liquid fat like that creates a dough that's inherently softer and more cake-like. The oil coats the flour particles differently.
And the instructions are just mix everything very well.
Which tells you there's no need for careful creaming or chilling. It's designed for speed and a moist final product.
Okay, let's move into the really technical, high-fat, European-style cookies. The hazelnut Linzer cookies are a great example.
This is a rich, intense cookie. It's got a lot of butter and a full 14 ounces of ground and toasted hazelnuts mixed right into the dough. This is not a cheap or fast recipe.
And the prep for the nuts is so specific. They have to be toasted, skinned, and then ground in a coffee grinder.
To get them fine enough to blend seamlessly. And the spice profile is heavy. Cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom. The shaping is intricate too. You make a little well in the dough ball and fill it with raspberry jam.
And the bake is unusual. A 2-stage bake at a low temperature.
12 minutes, turn the tray, then 12 more minutes at 325.
Why the low temp in the turn?
To guarantee even heat. If you baked a dough this rich and dense at a high temperature, the edges would burn before the center was cooked. Turning the tray is crucial for even browning.
The Kolachki recipe is another high-fat wonder. It's all about using dairy fat for maximum pliability.
The dough is just a massive foundation of dairy fat. 2 whole packs of cream cheese and 2 cups of butter with 4 cups of flour. The cream cheese adds fat and a stabilizing protein structure.
Which results in a dough that's incredibly tender and easy to handle.
Almost laminated. You knead it until it's not sticky, you roll it thin, and you cut it into squares. It's a dough that's engineered for folding and filling.
Last up, the seasonal drop cookies. The Christmas cookies here are the classic simple molasses cutout.
Right. Standard rolled dough, quick bake time. It signals a focus on crispness and creating a good surface for thick decorative frosting.
The Halloween cookies are defined by their sheer scale and the use of pumpkin.
This is a monster batch. 2 cups each of butter, sugar, cooked pumpkin, flour, raisins, and walnuts. The 2 cups of pumpkin add a ton of moisture and structure.
It's basically a cake in cookie form.
It is. A soft, dense, cakey drop cookie.
And finally, the eggnog cookies. This one combines a liquid flavor base with a specific shape and a cool finishing technique.
The liquid is a 1/4 cup of eggnog. The dough has crushed butterscotch candy in it. And because it's so moist, it needs at least 3 hours of refrigeration to get firm enough to roll and cut.
And it uses that Linzer-style cut with the center taken out.
And the candy application is the really clever part. Some of the candy bits are drizzled in the center before baking.
To melt and caramelize.
Exactly. Then, after it cools, you spread on an eggnog glaze and drizzle it with more candy bits and some nutmeg. You get 2 different textures from the same ingredient. It's a highly engineered holiday cookie.
Okay, we have just processed a massive amount of culinary data, 50 distinct blueprints for what makes a cookie most wanted. So let's synthesize the actual engineering lessons here.
This is the real value of the deep dive. It shows that controlling cookie texture really comes down to manipulating 3 simple levers: your fat, your sugar, and how you mix them.
So let's review the role of fat. We saw pure solid fats, blended fats, melted fats.
And the choice of fat is probably the single biggest predictor of texture and spread.
So softened butter.
When you cream softened butter with sugar, you're incorporating air. That gives you a higher rising cookie that spreads a bit, usually with a crisp edge and a tender center.
And melted butter.
Suppresses air. That gives you a denser dough, more even spread, and that classic chewy texture we saw in the chocolate chippers.
Then there's vegetable shortening,
which is 100% fat, no water. That means minimal spread and less gluten development. It gives you a structured, sometimes cakier cookie that holds its shape perfectly. It's the go-to for slice and bake or cutouts.
And the butter and cream cheese blend?
That's all about maximizing richness and pliability. The cream cheese stabilizes the dough, making it tender enough to roll thin and fold without cracking, like in the Kolachki.
Okay, That's a clear framework. Now, lever number 2, sugar.
Sugar determines moisture and texture. Packed brown sugar is hygroscopic, so it holds on to moisture. That directly leads to a soft, chewy cookie that stays fresh longer.
Versus powdered sugar,
which dissolves instantly, leading to a much finer crumb structure. Think shortbread, delicate, crisp textures.
And then there was that melted brown sugar base in the butterscotch bars,
which creates a caramelized base, adding intense flavor and a much firmer, almost candy-like texture once it cools.
And the third lever, leavening agents. We saw that deliberate combo of soda and powder.
Using both is the technique for a controlled, sustained rise. Soda gives you that immediate strong lift, especially with an acid like buttermilk or molasses. Powder gives you the gentle, sustained lift through the whole bake.
And we can't forget that time itself is an ingredient, the chilling requirements.
Chilling isn't just about making dough easier to handle. It's molecular engineering. It stabilizes the fat and properly hydrates the flour. We saw everything from a quick 10-minute chill to firm things up, to several hours for rolling, to that critical overnight chill for precision slicing or achieving that perfect texture.
It locks the fat in so it doesn't just melt out when it hits the oven.
Exactly.
Beyond the internal structure, though, the finishing touches are often what makes a cookie most wanted. We saw a clear difference between glazes and frostings.
Right. Glazes are thin, sugar-based liquids applied hot or warm, like the hot glaze on the baklava bars that soaks all the way through, or the pineapple juice glaze that sets up fast. Glazes add crispness and a sheen.
Whereas frostings are the opaque, creamy coatings that sit on top and provide a soft contrast.
And then you have the cookies that are structurally engineered to hold a decoration. We saw the macaroon kisses where the chocolate is inserted right after baking, using the heat to seal it in place.
And that brilliant, simple trick of coating heavy fruit in flour before mixing it in.
That is a technique every baker should know. It's a physical solution to a gravitational problem. You're using a little bit of a dry ingredient to guarantee even distribution of a dense one.
Finally, we have to talk about the scale of some of these recipes.
There's a huge contrast. The fruitful nutty cookies are the definition of a mass production recipe.
The ingredient list is just immense. 4 cups of flour, 2 cups of each sugar, 2 cups of butter, and then 9 more cups of nuts, raisins, granola, chocolate chips.
It's a bakery scale recipe. And it even says you can refrigerate or freeze the dough for later, acknowledging how massive it is.
And on the other end, you have recipes that give you very specific yields, like 24 pieces or 18 large pieces.
Which tells you that for those recipes, size and precision are part of what makes them work. It's a wonderful contrast, isn't it? Most wanted can mean either monumental size or nailing a very specific, delicate technique. So this deep dive has really given us a blueprint for baking success. It shows that the most wanted category is really a binary choice. It's either extreme convenience and clever shortcuts, or it's the meticulous perfection of traditional, high-effort, high-fat techniques.
And the knowledge here is the difference between just blindly following a recipe and actually engineering the result you want. We've seen the functional difference between egg whites and yolks, the genius of coating fruit in flour, and how just melting your butter instead of creaming it completely changes the game.
It really proves that mastering cookies is about understanding the predictable outcome of your ingredients. It's less about memorizing 4 cups of flour, and more about knowing that shortening will give you structure, while brown sugar will give you a moist interior.
So, as you think about all of this incredible structural knowledge, here is a final provocative thought for you to take into your own kitchen. Considering the sheer diversity of ingredients and prep times we've seen, from an 8-minute bake to an overnight chill, what single ingredient adjustment do you think has the most dramatic and predictable impact on the final texture of any given cookie?
Is it the water content in butter versus the pure fat in shortening? Is it the moisture-grabbing power of brown sugar versus the fine crumb from powdered sugar?
Or is it the strategic addition of a simple liquid, like buttermilk or eggnog?
That's a question for the kitchen chemist in all of us.
Until next time, keep digging deeper.